Qatar. That was just 1 week ago in Qatar, and now rounds 3 and 4 of the Asia Talent Cup. My name is Ben Cosendurus. Welcome along to the Chang International Circuit. In 10 minutes' time, we're going to get the first of our 2 races kicking off under beautiful, sunny, very warm skies. My name is Ben Cosendurus, as I said, alongside me, Stephen English. And Stephen, this is the 5th year of the Asia Talent Cup, and it's delivering exactly what it promises. This is the first rung on the road to MotoGP, and we've got plenty of ex-riders now in the Moto3 field.
Definitely, Ben. When you look at the Asia Talent Cup, it's really been that harvester of talent over here in Asia. We've seen riders come through this, race in the Repsol CEV Junior World Championship, race in Moto3. We've seen Grand Prix race winners from the likes of Paui, 2-time Moto3 race winner. Last year's champion Dennis Onsu, he's moved on to the CEV Championship. He'll be making his debut in that this weekend. We also have the likes of Chantra, winner of the championship a couple of years ago, local rider here in Thailand, and one of those potential stars of the future. We've also got Sasaki Misaki, and a lot of riders that have been able to make that transition from these Asian championships over to Europe. You can see the weather conditions. We got a very hot conditions on the ground, Ben, over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and it just provides another challenge for these riders to deal with that greasy track surface.
That is the hottest track temperature that we've seen so far this weekend, and it's only going to continue to grow as we come to the Superbike races this afternoon. There is one of just 2 returning riders to the Asia Talent Cup for 2018. And our championship leader, Haruki this is going to be the problem today, is the pronunciation.
No problems at all, Ben. It's Noguchi. And Noguchi, of course, 2-time, this is the 2nd year in the Asia Talent Cup. Last year he finished 2nd in the championship, beaten by Dennis Onsu by only a point. And for Noguchi, race winner of the opening race of the year in Qatar, where he beat this man, Super Mario, in Qatar. But those 2 riders really did provide a great show in that opening race of the season. It was the man in 3rd, Van Erde, the Australian rider that won the 2nd race, the Sunday race in Qatar. And between those 3 riders, we saw some great racing in the opening round.
Yeah, Bill Van Erde missed out on the leading group. There he is in the first race, and therefore ended up only finishing in 7th position in the first race. There was a group of 2 riders at the front, but we're used to seeing groups. The second race is much more like we were used to see last year, a big group of riders all slipstreaming each other, and it's going to be the same here because those first 2 sectors are all about top speed, and these little 250cc 4-strokes haven't got a huge amount of them.
Yeah, for all of these riders, it is possible to break away if the group behind start to fight with one another. We do see some breakaways in Asia Talent Cup, but we also see 10 rider groups at the front. Just about Van Erde, he's Michael van der Mark's tip for today's race. That could just be because it's a Dutch sounding name, but Van der Mark giving Van Erde the seal of approval, and the Thai crowd giving the leading Thai rider their seal of approval as well.
Yep, 4 Thai riders in the field. We've got 3 full season entries and a wild card. We've got 5 Indonesian riders, and still the most popular nationality within the Asia Talent Cup, the Japanese riders. They've had 2 champions in the first 2 years of the Asia Talent Cup, and we've got 6 riders on the grid here. But plenty of Thais right up the front here, and that is because there's such a great culture of road racing and Thai motorbike racing here in Thailand, and especially around the Buriram circuit. They have plenty of usage of this track because it's one of the very few permanent facilities. Most of the Thai racing that happens is actually on street tracks, and kind of sketchy street tracks at that.
Yeah, the underbone culture, big here in Thailand, just like it is in Malaysia, and that's really been one of the keys for developing a lot of the talent that comes from this region. If you think back over the last 10 years, we've had a number of riders that have actually come from initially street racing, underbone, illegal racing in Malaysia, around the streets of Kuala Lumpur, to get onto the full-time Grand Prix grid, and it really is something special when you go down to any of those events. But you need to be careful because the police presence can tend to drive it out of certain areas of town. Here in Thailand, we actually have a drag race tonight with all the locals on their scooters, and it's actually one of the best events of the Thai weekend as well. You can see Senda here as well. He was a front runner in Qatar and put it on the podium in the opening round of the year. Quick rider, he's been aggressive as well, should be able to fit in quite nicely into the Asia Talent Cup. One of the many rookies, as you said, Ben, 17 rookies in the field this year.
Toshi Senda, 4th in the championship with 29 points out of the 2 opening races in Qatar. We have 12 races across the championship, and very, very interestingly, they have to get this track right because it forms a third of the championship. They'll come back here in October when MotoGP comes to town for the first time. Therefore, 4 races out of 12 around this track, vital to get this place perfect.
Yeah, for all of these riders, there's only one round where they're not in front of the MotoGP or WorldSBK paddock as well, so this really does give them a great opportunity to be able to showcase their skills. Of course, their skills got them picked here by the likes of Alberto Puig and Hiro Ayama, 2 of the key people behind this Asia Talent Cup.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with the format, they are actually hand-picked, or most of the grid is hand-picked, rather than simply putting in an entry and saying, I want to race. You actually have to get picked to be part of this, the Asia Talent Cup. There's also the British Talent Cup this year for the first time, and it's the first step on the rung to then the Red Bull rookies into Moto3 and the various other championships that we have in Moto3 machinery, and then you really are in the road to MotoGP. Just getting ready then to head out on the warm-up lap. The bikes, a full grid of 20 bikes, all identical, not only in livery, but also in machinery. They all run the Dunlop tyre, they all run the Honda NSF250R, revving to 13,000 revs, and they'll be using every single one of those as they head down towards turn 3. First look at this Buriram circuit then. And it's a long first straightaway. I actually took a look at the original designs for this track before they built it, and it was not going to be this long straight. There was going to be a big kink in it before they then decided to make it from turn 1 to turn 2 a massive long straight, and already battling on the warm-up lap. Bit of elbowing going into turn 3 there.
Yeah, get the retaliation in first and get yourself warmed up for the race. You can see the championship standings here with Noguchi leading the way. First place in the opening round and second place in race 2. So he's been leading from Van Erde, the race winner of race 2, from Ai and Senda as well. But early days in this championship, Ben.
Yeah, we had 5 different riders on the podium in Qatar. Noguchi was on the podium twice, but then Van Erde took the win in the second race. Mario Aji was second in the first race. Senda and Nishimura were also on the podium in Qatar, and Nishimura is the only one that I can really make out, and probably that you can make out. Right at the back of the shot there, he's got a green helmet, because that's the only way that we can identify these riders. Even the overalls are identical, supplied by Alpine Stars. So we've got, there's no way of really taking an advantage out of your machinery. It's all about how well you as a rider can perform on these 250cc 4 strokes. Hang on a second, we've got 2 riders with green helmets. Oh no! The number 3 bike at the back of shot, that is Nishimura, and the number 13...
Hendry Sana, but for all these riders now, Ben, it's a 16-lap race that they've got to get themselves ready for. The key thing is get yourself to the front. If there's a breakaway, be in the right position. If there isn't a breakaway, then you've got to figure out just how to use that slipstream in the final laps. Down into turn 3 is your key overtaking place, but turn 12 is a good opportunity. Turn 4 we see moves in this championship as well. But with all these riders, really every corner is an overtaking opportunity because they just send it down the inside.
The ideal, though, is to make a pass without compromising your momentum too much. And it's all right to do on the slow corners, but on the faster corners, you really can compromise yourself and lose momentum. Yes, you're going to gain it back after a couple of laps, but it does take some time. Time to focus on the lights. 20 riders with 16 laps ahead of them. 4.5-kilometer circuits, and we're racing here in Thailand. Who's going to get the best starts? Looks like it wasn't a particularly good start from our front row contenders, and the 23 bike down the inside from row 2 and into 3rd position, and that's Sao Lee.
Yeah, the oldest man in the field with a good start, but it's Noguchi leading the way from Super Mario IE. This is on board with the home hero, Bursai. We've got 2 onboard cameras. We can use this one just to see the leaders at the front of the field, and you can see everyone just fanning out down in towards turn 3 with all these Moto3 based machines. A lot of lines on the way into turn 3 and a lot of overtaking opportunities. You can see a couple of riders running a little bit wide and leaving open the door to be overtaken.
Got to sort each other out on these early laps just to try and establish a little bit of a rhythm. 16 laps is a long race, but at least then they are now used to that race length, having had those 2 first races in Qatar. But there is definitely a gap emerging between our front 2, as we saw one rider really fast down at the super fast turn 4, and that's a 17 bike.
Yeah, and that's Saswang, the Thai rider as well. So disappointment here, but he'll have another opportunity to race tomorrow, and you can see into turn 4 everyone just getting themselves in on top of one another, and that's what happens here in the Asia Talent Cup.
This is exactly what we saw in Qatar, a slight breakaway between 2 riders, Noguchi and Aji. Those 2 were at it in race 1 in Qatar, and it was only the last corner, the last straight in fact, where we established who would take first and second, and then there was a big gap to the rest of the top 10. Already we're starting to see that happening. They're just going to be intelligent now in the way that they fight each other. Not compromise each other's speed too much, do the passing on the straights, make sure they take the optimum line through the corners, and then they can stay away from the group. But this turn is always critical, and we've got 2 bikes down in the mid-pack. Difficult to see who they are for the moment.
Yeah, and it's Agos and Yamada down at that final corner, but for each of those riders, you can see it looked like it was Yamada that was just stumbling away back towards the spikes, so maybe just got his foot caught underneath the machine. But you can see the second group here, all trying to fan out on the way into turn 3, and the order just changing in that second group. But the gap is opening up between the leaders and 3rd place. It's around about 2 seconds now.
Bill Van Erde up into 3rd position ahead of Lucky, the other returning rider to the championship. Lucky finished well down in 10th position in last year's championship. Here he is then in the slipstream of Bill Van Erde heading towards turn 4. Not really a recommended overtaking opportunity because it's so fast through here. The fastest corner on the circuit. You do have to be super brave through there. But luckily now, paint on the outside rather than AstroTurf, so if you do run a little bit wide, you're not super compromised and really have to stand the bike up to prevent falling. There is Lucky with the number 5 machine just behind Basari. He's our other onboard camera carrier. Yeah, there we are.
As you said, Lucky, one of the few riders returning to this class. Noguchi, the race leader, the other. And if you look at where a lot of the riders have gone from this class last year, a lot over to the CEV Championship with the Ansu brothers, Ayagura, Yuki Kuni and Shantra and Jerry Salim all racing in the CEV Championship this year. That's why it was difficult to win in this class last year, just because there was that quality of riders in the ATC.
Yeah, so we've really kind of reset for 2018 with 17 rookies all learning their craft and learning how to race. And it's a perfect way to properly learn how to race in low-powered moto machinery. The slipstream racecraft so important. Although we did see our pole man, Noguchi, nearly a second faster than anybody else. At the moment, Aji is able to hold on to him just 0.3 of a second between the two, and then this battle. And as they continue to fight, they're allowing those front two to get away. It's the 19 at the front of it now, Bill Van Erde. That's going to change into turn 3.
Yeah, Van Erde actually defended really well to be able to stay at the front of that group, but they're around 2.5, 3 seconds behind the leaders now as well. So the leading group of Noguchi and Ai, they've been able to open up a decent gap, and it's going to be a big challenge for the second group to actually get back to that. So we could see Noguchi and Mario Aji at the front, just like we saw in race 1 in Qatar.
Back on board then with the Thai rider, looking down the inside of 4. There isn't a place really to do it there. Maybe though on the brakes into 5. No, he doesn't make a move, but ahead of him there is a move as Bill Van Erde goes back ahead of Lucky. Lucky now ahead of Bill Van Erde. It's kind of what happens in the Asia Talent Cup. It just keeps changing and changing until the laps run down. But at the front, those two have been relatively well behaved. Going to investigate that crash that we saw between Yamada and Agus.
Yeah, so
they're both back up though. And here is the replay of the start of the race. Pretty equal between the front 4 or 5 riders. Perhaps a slightly better start from the 23 bike of Sao Lee. He's now faded, but it was a good start right on the inside there. He just had a bit of a tight line to get around, so had to get on the anchors a bit too much, not carry the momentum. And of course, that then compromised him all the way down into turn 3.
Yeah, just riding on board with Mario Aji from the front row of the grid. You can see Sai Lee just on the inside there, as you said, Ben, with a good start, but Aji on the number 7 bike able to keep himself at the front. And you can see early doors himself and Noguchi just able to pick their way through. This is the action into turn 4 as well, where we saw the crash for Saswang, but into turn 4 on that opening lap there were 5, 6 abreast. It was always going to end in tears for someone, and just like it was at the final corner as well with Yamada's crash with himself and Agus. So as we said, Ben, that is under investigation. We'll see what the stewards have to say about it. Couldn't really get a good view there of what actually happened. It looks like it's just the usual action on the way into that final corner where everyone just comes together.
Yeah, one of them was already down, I think. I think Agus was already on the floor and he just slid into Yamada, so he wouldn't have had any control of where he was sliding in his trajectory, but the cameraman we just clipped a bit too late into that, so we didn't quite see the very beginning. But there's been some amazing final corners here in Buriram over the years. Once we're finished here, have a Google of big crash Buriram, Thailand, and basically 12 riders all go down the final corner and the guy in 13th wins the race. They all fall.
The last couple of years, Buriram has probably been the best racing we've seen in the Asia Talent Cup. So the fans here for the WorldSBK round should get quite a lot of entertainment over the next 13 laps. And you can see there with Burasai just being overtaken as well through the fast flip-flops at the end of the lap. This is just coming into the final corner now as well. Is he going to try and attack back? He'll just stay where he is, but he's under attack from the 21 of Shahril as well, who gets down the inside. Good move there from Shahril, the Malaysian. And you can see Noguchi there with the fastest lap of the race as well. So Noguchi just trying to stretch his lead. It's out to 0.3 of a second, so it's not really pulling away too much yet from Aji. Down the front straight, that gap will come all the way back down. You can see Powie and the timing tower on the left-hand side. He's into the points now as well. Ben, of course, his brother, 2-time Moto3 race winner.
Plenty of shuffling on that last lap. We dropped Sender down to 14th position and Fackrell down to 12th position. Those two really featured in Qatar, but for the moment they're only down at the fringes of the points.
Yeah, Fackrell was the pole man in Qatar, stole the bike on the grid for race 1, and then had to try and improve himself in race 2, but he was able to get himself back to the front of the field, even in race 1, having to come through the pack. Decent performance in Qatar, but not quite able to match it so far in the early stages of this race. You can see Lucky trying to get down the inside and makes the move into turn 4 on number 4. Moandar, who's then able to get back down the inside on the way into 5. Good riding from both guys there, just to be able to have clean battles around turns 4 and 5. This middle section of the lap, though, this really is where, if you're battling, you can lose a lot of time. And it's in this sector where Aji and Noguchi at the front have been able to really stretch their legs. That's where they're 5.5 seconds clear of this battle for second now.
But they haven't been swapping positions as well. They have really locked together, and for the moment, as we saw a little bit in Qatar in race 1, not too many changes of positions in the early laps. It was the later laps where they started to swap around, and that's where they lost their advantage. But if you're sensible by doing it, you don't lose momentum. Just you need to do it in the first and second sectors rather than this more fiddly section. Yeah,
and that's the experience of Noguchi, as we said. Second in the championship last year, won a couple of races, a lot of podiums. He was able just to build his challenge on consistency. You can see Aji there with the new fastest lap as well, with himself and Noguchi just stretching this lead even further. It's out to nearly 7 seconds to the battle for second, but a good battle for second. But for the likes of Aji, who's a podium man in the Asian Pacific Championship, he's got a fair bit of experience. Noguchi, as we said, a lot of experience in this class already. They're just using that experience to not fight with one another, get out in front, and then in the final 4 or 5 laps, that's where they'll start to really fight with one another.
We're seeing fastest laps from Aji each lap, but that is because he's got the slipstream of the bike in front, and he's able to just carry a little bit more speed along these straights, but then he's not diving up the inside. He's just coming out of the throttle a little bit, just sitting in the place where he wants to be, feeling comfortable, optimizing the racing line. And he is only a fraction faster each lap than Noguchi, who leads. And then, look at this lot. The rest of the field are trying to all be in the front of this pack. Bill Van Ede has been at the front for most of the time. Oh, one rider nearly losing it, touching the rider in front. It's Mundasar who now leads that pack, the number 4 bike, and Bill Van Ede's dropped 1 position. There is the 21 bike of Sharil, so he's moving up slowly.
Yeah, Sharil, he's the man that overtook this man, Burasai, who was the rider that was running out a little bit wide through 5. Did well to recover it and collect himself, because he came pretty close to just running a little bit too hot into turn 5. Good riding from Burasai, the local Thai rider.
Burasai puts a position on the 13 bike of Lucky, so Lucky's starting to be shuffled down into the clutches of Nishimura, who's starting to make his way up. So Nishimura is in 10th position. And you can see the gap now visibly. We're up to 8 seconds between that front pack and the second pack, and Bill Van Ede puts himself back up into 3rd position. But it's where you are in the last couple of laps, isn't it? It doesn't really matter where you are right now. We might see a change of position here into 3. No, Aji decides against it.
Yeah, this is, we usually say, like in Moto3, you have to wait until those final stages. But after what we saw in Qatar, you could say this is like a MotoGP race as well, where you're just trying to wait until those final stages to make your moves. You can see Mario Aji now just using that bit of a toe, but he's not really trying to get through into the front. He's just happy enough to sit there behind Noguchi. They see the gap opening behind them. They don't need to attack each other. They're just happy to get through these early stages of the race. We're just coming up towards half distance. So it's in the next 4 or 5 laps that Aji's going to get a little bit more agitated and try and get himself through on Noguchi. But Noguchi doing a good job there, leading the way. He's almost like a pace setter right now. These guys just want to stretch out that lead as much as they can over the battle for 3rd place. It's still Van Erde leading the way. Van Erde, of course, the first ever Australian to win a race in the ATC. And he's doing a good job of just getting himself back to the front of that group anytime he gets overtaken. So solid stuff there from the young Australian.
Just a reminder that we are watching riders between the ages of 12 and 19. I mean, 19 is pretty old for the Asia Talent Cup, but our youngest rider, 12 years of age. And here is a replay. And that's the number 21 bike of Sharil down the inside of Bill Van Erde. And I think he's going to make that stick. Although it has changed since.
Yeah, it's going to change a lot, but Sharil's done a good job coming from the 4th row of the grid just to get himself into that scrap for the final spot on the podium. Good riding from the Malaysian rider, but you can see just how competitive it is in this second group. This is what we expect to see more often than not in the ATC. Big battle group of riders all fighting with one another, and at the front still Noguchi leading the way. Aji, he's not really trying to make that move into turn 3. We haven't seen too many moves into 3, but you can definitely think in the second half of the race, as we get into the the stage where the points are up for grabs, that's where we'll start to see a lot of moves on the way into 3. Aji's looked good on the way into 4 as well, so he'll feel that in those final stages it's a potential overtaking opportunity as well. The only problem for a rider like Aji, who's second at the moment, is you don't want to make the move too early, because turn 12 always presents itself an opportunity to get through as well. Just looking further down the field as well, Ben, there's a couple of riders that are pretty interesting though. Obviously you've got Van Erde, the Australian. You've also got Ben the Bullet Baker, and he's been looked after by Colin Stoner as well. So Colin Stoner, Casey Stoner's father, he's here this weekend just offering a bit of help to the Australian riders. We saw that in the past with Stoner looking after Tom Edwards as well.
Yeah, Ben Baker went down in both the races in Qatar, sadly, so he is at the bottom of the championship. But for the moment, he sits in 15th position, so doing a pretty good job. And considering that pretty much the whole field from 3rd down to Ben Baker, actually he's down to 14th position, so that's 3rd to 14th in one shot there. Then there's a gap of 8 seconds to Ben Baker in 15th. And he's got a nice little battle with Powie at the moment for 15th and 16th. And then we've got other riders who are, I think, still circulating, but well out of the race.
Yeah, we've only got 2 retirements in the race. We still have 18 riders in the field. And you can see Van Erde still leading the way here in 3rd. It was interesting talking to a few people around the paddock, Ben. There was actually interest in the Asia Talent Cup amongst everyone within the paddock. And just talking to a few riders, as we said, Van Erde, he's Van der Mark's choice. But talking to John Laverty, out track spotting for Eugene Laverty in the Superbike class, he said all the way through yesterday and today, Super Mario's my man. And he's got Aji as his potential star of the future. Number 14, that's Yamada. We saw him crash the last corner. We mentioned that there's only 2 retirements, but Yamada not one of them, but he is now a lapped rider in the field.
And the 2 leaders trying to pick up just a little bit of a slipstream, just to see if they can just eke out a couple more revs from their Honda engines down towards turn 4. And for number 7, for Aji, he's just going to be sitting and reading what the bike in front is doing, seeing where Noguchi is perhaps a little weaker, stronger than him, and plotting what he might be able to do. And we might see a couple of faux moves. He might try something, then let Noguchi back past again, then try something different, see where he can make the move stick and where potentially he can then hold on to that lead as we get to the final straight, because it's so crucial to make sure you do that pass at the right time.
Yeah, you can see some overtaking moves in the background there, but Nishimura, he wasn't making the move at the right time. He was all the way outside of the track limits through those fast corners in the midfield of the lap. But as you said, Ben, it is all about just picking your moment and timing it right. When I look at Aji, I see an awful lot of similarities between Noguchi last year, just sitting in behind the leaders, trying to just make sure he's in those podium spots. It was the same in Qatar, where he picked up a podium in race 2, finished 4th in race 1. It was just consistent stuff from Aji, the same as what we saw from the likes of Cooney a couple of years ago as well. If you're a young rider, a rookie in this class, get to the front. The key thing is keep building up those points. If the likes of Cooney and Noguchi are anything to go by, it's a good tactic to be able to put through a pretty solid championship campaign.
So here's his battle for 3rd again. Munandar has been able to hold on at the front of it for a while now. Bill Van Eerdes got back into the head of the field, so those guys look pretty strong. They take a wide sweeping line through turn 3. There are a couple of different ways to do it. We spoke about it yesterday in the Superbike free practice sessions. Do you kind of square it off? Do you triangulate that corner and head for the early apex, go wide in the middle part and then try and cut back? Or do you try a more sweeping, more momentum? And I guess on these bikes with less power, they will just try and round off the corners as much as possible, get as much sweeping line as possible, use as much track as possible to keep that speed up.
Yeah, the corner speed that these bikes can carry really is huge, and that's where they make their lap time. They don't have, as you said, Ben, a lot of power. It's all about just keeping your momentum, keeping yourself into the right rev range, and just being able to use whatever power you have at all times. And that's why you see all these riders just carrying all that corner speed. What is interesting, though, when you look at over the last couple of years how the style of riding has evolved, an awful lot of the riders in this class and in Moto3, whether it's in the CEV Championship or in the World Championship, using the rear brake an awful lot more just to try and help turn that bike as well. So even here in the Asia Talent Cup, we see that as well. And that really is one of the key changes in riding styles that we've seen over the last few years. But you can see Mario Aji just sitting behind Noguchi. Every lap he's been a little bit quicker than Noguchi, but just happy enough to sit there and wait for the final 4 or 5 laps. We've got 6 laps to go, and as you can see in this group, there's a group of 12 riders that easily we could have changes in the order for each of those guys, all the way back to 14th position there for Hedri. That's a difficult one for me. Hedriansa. Lucky. We'll go with Lucky. And he's one of the returning riders, as we said earlier, so he needs to use his experience to get himself through that field.
Burisari hits the front for a few moments into turn 1, but going down into turn 3 because there's a turn 2 on the straight, which I've never understood here in Buriram, but apparently there is a left-hand turn along that straight, so turn 3 is the hairpin. And we put Bill Van Eerde back into the front, but down to turn 4, it's going to be Burisari again on the 5 bike. And Bill Van Eerde drops 2 positions. They all fan out on the braking zone to 5, trying to find a way through. The gap's now 12 seconds, and they will be given a little bit of advice. I know you get sucked into this kind of form of racing where you're always swapping positions, but there'll be a bit of advice from some of the coaches to say, look, you needed to focus a little bit more on the guys in front rather than fighting with the guys around you, because you let them scamper off 12 seconds in 10 laps.
And that is one of the key things in the Asia Talent Cup, whether it's Alberto Puig, former Grand Prix race winner, whether it's Hiro Ayama, the last ever 250 world champion. Their job is to teach these riders how you have to approach a race. They're also given nutritionists, trainers, given a full program. It's a full professional setup for all of these riders to try and get the most from themselves, so that when they move on to the next stage of their career, it's not all a shock for them when they go to Europe. They know how to train, they know how to prepare, and they know how to get the most from themselves. And that's the key thing in the Asia Talent Cup, and that's why we've been able to see all the way back from Adam Norden in Moto3 all the way through to Pewi winning a couple of races, and Sasaki these days in the Moto3 class. It's that grounding really has helped them to propel their careers onto the world stage.
Just sitting in the middle of turn 3, then hooking back the apex at the end of the turn to far it out towards turn 4. Still no change between these two riders with 5 laps to go. There was a little bit of elbowing going on in the second group at the back of that. And we saw Bill Van Eerde drop down to 7th position over the line, but he'll be making his way back up through that field. And in fact, who moved up into 4th position on that last lap was one of our local riders, Warwick. In fact, the wild card.
It's Warwick, Napper, but good performance.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, easy for me to say, but he's done a good job to be able to get himself up through the order as well. He started pretty far. He started on the second row of the grid, fell down the order, and he's been able to recover pretty well. So good performance by him. You can see Aji though, he started to build himself up a little bit more. He's half wheeling down into turn 3, into turn 4, even into turn 5 as well. He was having a little bit of a luck. So Aji now starting to really up the pressure on Noguchi in these final 4.5 laps.
And notice that Noguchi hasn't looked over his shoulder. Aji hits the front for the first time in this race. I was about to say, Noguchi's not been looking over his shoulder. He's not been paying much attention to the fact that Aji's there. And look at this. Now it starts to heat up. Aji knows that he can get down the inside and win the race. He can do that turn 12 move. But he now needs to go back to 2nd position and allow Noguchi back ahead of him. And will Noguchi take the bait? Will he go down the inside into turn 3?
Well, Noguchi's been happy to lead the race so far. Could be worthwhile just sitting behind Aji.
It will.
Seeing what his rival can do. You can see their backside of it pretty early on the way into turn 3. So Noguchi now just trying to understand what his rival has here at the Buriram International Circuit. And for both of these riders, with such a big gap over the guys behind them, it now does just become a real cycle race where you're just trying to understand when to make your break. And you can see Noguchi, he's trying to get down the inside into turn 4. This is where we saw Aji try and half wheel a couple of times. Aji defending there and able to hold on to the lead, but for Noguchi it's all just been trying to see, can he use the toe to get close enough to make a move into turn 3 and turn 4. He knows that he can now, and he'll also know that turn 12 is the opportunity as well. Just 3.5 laps left for these riders at the front.
And the other thing he's doing was moving around behind Aji. He was moving the bike from left to right, and you'd be amazed how much you can take in. Even though Aji's ahead, he'll be able to hear where that bike is in relation to him. And if that bike starts to get quieter or disappear to the left-hand side, you'll think, okay, I know where he is. Like, he's not looking round, he's not looking at where he is, but he can hear where he is. If he gets too far away, he'll start to get a little bit insecure as to maybe the idea that he might be diving to the inside. Here we come then to 12. This is the last corner of the race in a couple of laps' time. And Noguchi doesn't try the move this time.
Yeah, Noguchi not really trying to make those moves just yet. As we said, 3 laps to go, so plenty of time for Noguchi, and it will just come down to a battle of wills as much as anything else, because Noguchi, if you're in second, you know you can make a move into 3, you know you can make a move into 4, you know you can make a move into 12. So it will present, the opportunity will be presented at some point to try and get to the front. You can see in this scrap for third that it's Charles that's hit the front of it now. He's trying to just break away from the group behind him. It's Van Erde in 4th position now. Van Erde just making the move into 4th over the line.
I'll tell you what, I think Charles will be able to hold on to that 3rd position coming into 4, unless he's the guys behind are super brave. Bill Van Erde thinks about it, but really has to be late on the brakes. And Charles holds on to that 3rd position, but really the last podium spot is any of the front 5 or 6 of these riders, unless something chaotic happens at the last turn, which is very possible here in Buriram. But they are starting to just wind it up. They'll know how many laps are left. They'll see it on the board. And Charles then loses the position to Van Erde. He thought about it into 3 and makes it stick into 4. Oh, we've got a rider down in the middle of it. And that's 22.
That's Fakral that's down. He was the pole man in Qatar, and he's on the ground here in race 1. As you said, Ben, the chaos that can ensue on the final laps of an ATC race can easily change everything that we see inside the second group. But as it stands, it's still Van Erde that's at the front of that group. Here's a replay just of what we saw from Fakral just in the background, just losing the front on the way into turn 5. Disappointment there for Fakral. He was in that fight potentially to get into the podium spots. He'd done well to get himself up into the top 10 there in the early stages of the race and stay in that group for second. But you can see with 2 laps to go, with still Mario Aggi leading the way. But you can see Noguchi just using that toe on the way into turn 1. He's not going to make a move into 1, but he might try and make a move into 3, or else he might just keep his powder dry for the final lap.
And the battle continues for 3rd position. Starting to see a little bit of a gap there, and that sort of faux move that we just saw is going to compromise that second group of riders. It was Warwick who was down the very inside and sort of got everyone else to the outside of him to fade out the throttle. So now a decent gap between him and the front 2. Charles to the inside, Bill Van Erde to the outside. Charles holds on through 3, but Bill's favourite passing spot is through 4 and into 5. And now it's really a battle of strategy. Can the 8-bike, can Warwick get back onto the tail of these 2 and put himself in a position to get onto the podium?
And Noguchi's hit the front now, so made the move into turn 4. So Noguchi, is he going to try and break away from Aggi here? Not really easy to do that unless he's got a clear speed advantage. We didn't see in qualifying. He had a second in hand in qualifying, but in the race we haven't seen anything like that from Noguchi, with Aggi able to go with him step by step. This should be a replay of what we saw from the number 9 of Noguchi getting down the inside of Aggi into 4. Makes the move very early, doesn't even need to make it on the way into the corner like we've seen from the likes of Van Erde. Just gets there nice and early. Good safe move there from Noguchi as well, nice and clean. And
look how much the slipstream makes a difference. Came from absolutely nowhere and just had the extra slipstream, the extra speed, flew through into turn 4. But you can't do the same thing into 12 because the straight is not long enough. It's an acceleration zone through 10 and 11, but you really need to be brave. We're on to the last lap then. We're on to the final lap here in Buriram of race 1 of the Asia Talent Cup. And who is going to take the victory? Noguchi stood on the top step of the podium in Qatar for the first race. I was on the second step in Qatar on the second race, but can he take victory here in Buriram? He leads going into turn 3, the first of our overtaking opportunities, and he holds on. Yeah, good defending there from Noguchi on the way into 3. Turn 4 is where we've seen most of the moves being made. Noguchi, of course, 2-time race winner, 1 in Suzuka last year, 1 in Qatar last week, and he's just going to try and hold off Aggi, who's trying to claim his first win. Aggi into 4, this is where we've seen most of the moves. Yeah, most of the moves, but if he does it here, then he's under pressure into 12. Does he dive to the inside? No, he doesn't. It was a nice sweeping line taken by Noguchi.
Yeah, good defending again there from Noguchi. Really clever riding on this final lap from Noguchi. Let's see what's happening in the scrap for third.
Unsurprisingly.
It's still Sharrell at the front, but the order changing all the way. That's Bill Van Eerde just making the move into fifth as well. So Van Eerde's going to have to try and get through another couple of riders to hit the front. He looks like he's already picked off one of them into five as well. So Van Eerde into fourth. He'll try and make a move into the final corner to get that final step of the podium.
It's all about turn 12 then. Our leading two riders are coming towards turn 12 now, and it's going to be between those other three riders for third position. Bill Van Eerde puts himself potentially in the wrong position because we've got turn 12 and the braking zone to come. Here come our two leaders. Aji to the inside of Noguchi. Aji tries to go very late on the brakes, and he does go too deep, too late on the brakes. Noguchi is going to take the victory. Aji in second, and who is going to be in third position? That second group of riders are now heading towards turn 12, and Bill Van Eerde takes the racing line, sweeps through turn 12, and does enough to hold on to third spot ahead of Sharrell, and then Mundanar. Great racing from the Asia Talent Cup.
Yeah, and you saw Mundanar with a small mistake in that final corner as well. Had to run out over the curbs on the exit, but he's still able to hold on for that top five spot. We saw Aji try and get down the inside. We saw him frantically hooking back the gears on the way into that final corner, but not quite able to make the move on this man, Noguchi. 2 wins out of 3 so far this season, second place in the other end, so almost perfect start to the campaign for Noguchi, and he'll open up 17-point lead now over Aji at the front top of the standings. So a solid start to the year for Noguchi, second in the championship last year, and certainly here at round 2 he's been able to stamp his authority. Really clever ride there from Noguchi.
What we didn't see is Aji try that move into turn 12 during the race. He didn't ever really rehearse it, put himself in the middle of the circuit, try to brake in the position where he is now, and you see he did it for the first time on the last lap to try and make it stick, and realised that actually he couldn't brake any later than he'd been on previous laps on the racing line, and therefore it didn't happen for him.
Yeah, Aji just trying to make the classic last corner block pass. Bit of a struggle there to shake hands, but good sportsmanship from both of those Asia Talent Cup riders. And Noguchi looks like he could be the latest in that line of Japanese talent that's come through this championship. Whether you look at Sasaki, Toba, Misaki, they've all been through here and gone on to do bigger and better things. And Noguchi's hoping that he'll get his opportunity in the next year. But
he was so close last year, so close to winning that championship last year. It took about half a lap of the last race to actually work out who had won the championship, because we had to do the maths. And nobody knew really until the graphics came up halfway around the slowing down lap that Noguchi had missed out on the championship, and therefore returns to dominate this year. And so far in terms of points it looks like he has, but in terms of racing it's been super, super close. And Bill Van Eerde comes to pit lane. Again, he put himself in a dangerous position, made that move into 4, his favourite passing move, but then he was under pressure into 12, but nobody managed to find a way through.
Yeah, and Van Eerde certainly looks like a brave kid. He's done well in these opening 2 rounds. As we said, the first ever Australian winner in this Asia Talent Cup Championship, and really being able to build on that already here in Buriram, always at the front of that group for that fight for third. So really impressive stuff there from the Australian.
Yeah, he was always, I think he went back to about 7th position at one point, and that was the lowest that he ever went, and 7th position was still only a couple of tenths away from the front of that second group. So he is the leading rider from that second group, and therefore claiming 3rd position and entering the Parc Ferme, and then the front 2 that scampered away and were 14 seconds ahead by the end of the race. Aji in second, and Noguchi the winner for the second time in 2018. First race win in Qatar, first race win in Buriram, and he's mastered this place, and that's good omen for when they come back again tomorrow and then in October.
Yeah, of course, in October they'll support the MotoGP races before moving on to Sepang and Motegi as well, so it really does give these riders an opportunity to race on the biggest stage in front of all the right names, and that really is the goal of the ATC.
Just to remind you, as they take their helmets off, just how young they are. When you see them on track with the helmets and the leathers, it's hard to fathom that these guys are 14, 15, 16 years of age. And Bill Van Erde, 15 years old, born in 2002. That makes you feel old, doesn't it? Noguchi, 16 years of age, and Aji, 14 years of age. There is Aji.
Yeah, and for all these riders, it really is the goal of just getting, as you said, Ben, on that road to MotoGP. When you're 15, 14 years of age, really the target is to get yourself to Europe, race in the CV Championship. CV, of course, having its first round of the season this weekend in Estoril, and then to move from that onto the Grand Prix stage. This was Noguchi getting down the inside into turn 4 in what turned out to be the winning overtake of the race. Good, smart, clean riding from Noguchi, and really his experience, that's made the difference in these opening couple of rounds. And you can see here with Aji just trying to hook back those gears, get himself back down into that final corner, and good riding from Noguchi just to be able to sweep across him, and good riding from Aji as well to collect the bike and not run into the back of Noguchi as he comes across. Solid stuff from both riders, and that's why they're first and second in the championship right now.
Yeah, Noguchi was actually brave enough to claim the racing line, to do the normal line that he'd been doing lap after lap and sweep across a slightly out of control Aji, because there was centimetres between the front wheel of Aji's bike and the rear wheel of Noguchi's bike into that last turn. The gap of 0.7 seconds doesn't really tell the full story. Noguchi and Aji were locked together throughout the whole of that 16-lap encounter. Bill Van Erde finishing 14 seconds down, and that group of riders from 3rd all the way down to 12th by the end. Toshiki Shenda, the last of that group. See, just 2 seconds separating 3rd and 12th. And then a couple of riders that we saw drop it on the early laps. And both of those 2 riders have headed to pit lane and headed to the medal centre, be checked out, and hopefully we'll see them again tomorrow. Here is the championship then. 17 points separate our front 2 in race 1. And Bill Van Erde in 3rd position, drops a position actually, 3 points now behind Aji. So the podium, strangely here in Buriram, is actually on the inside of the circuit, fantastically facing the 30,000 grandstand that sits above the pit boxes. It does mean a little golf cart journey.
Yeah, it's a long drive there for Ran to lead the rest of the Asia Talent Cup riders over, and for all these riders now onto the podium again for Noguchi and Aji and Van Erde. These are the guys that shared the podium in Qatar, and they've definitely done a lot to separate themselves in the opening 3 races. But the key thing is, Ben, every race, everyone gains so much experience in this class, and it really is about what you can do on those peaks. Whenever you show what you can do, that's what the talent spotters are looking for, just as much as who's winning every race.
The Aussie's looking a little bit sweaty, isn't he? The Japanese and Japanese Indo rider looking much more composed after that very hot encounter. But from Douglas, it's not the warmest part of Australia.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, if he's struggling, Ben, what do we look like? It's been definitely not weather for Northern Europeans, but up in Port Douglas, it is quite far north for Van Erde, so used to a tropical climate, and definitely dealing with it pretty well. He kept a cool head in those final stages, but that man, Noguchi, he kept the coolest head of all.
Raises the helmet above. And now we'll get the trophies handed out to our front 3. Obviously, they've had the pick of the Arai brochure, so they're all running with Arai helmets, and they've only got a certain amount of different designs to choose from, and Bill Van Erde and Noguchi have gone with the same design. So when they're fighting out for the rest of the season, with our colleagues Matt and Fran commentating in MotoGP, going to make it even harder for them to identify between the 2. The trophies are handed out then, and we'll get the national anthem. The Japanese national anthem rings out here in Buriram. I do like this podium. I think it's a really clever podium. A lot of, well, the majority of podiums around the world are built into the press centre and built into the main building above the pit boxes. But here, they thought, we're going to put the podium in front of the pit boxes, in front of the main grandstand. Very, very clever idea. So let's take a look back at the highlights then of our first race of the Asia Talent Cup here in Thailand, and it was a good start on the inside from Xiao Li, but he squared off the corner a bit too much and ended up falling into the mid-pack, and instantly our front two made a breakaway. Noguchi and Aji, with Noguchi ahead initially, Aji just following him through. We had a couple of riders down at the first corner. One of our local Thai riders went for a big long slide at turn 4, and then Agis and Yamada went down at turn 12. While the front two checked out, there was a massive battle for third position. And then Aji hit the front going into turn 12. Whilst the battle for third continued to change. A late faller with Fakrul going down, our pole man from Qatar. And then Noguchi took command of the lead going into turn 4 again, and then had the confidence to stay around the outside into 12 and head towards the line to take his second victory of the season and consolidate that championship advantage. It was a great first race here. We've got another race tomorrow at the same time. Make sure you join us. Thanks for watching.